Hello and welcome to Think Like a Game Designer. I'm your host, Justin Gary. In this podcast, I speak with world-class game designers and creative pioneers across multiple industries. Each episode takes you on a deep dive into the creative process, exploring the nuances of game design and the extensive cultural, technological, and business factors influencing various creative fields. Tune in for practical tips and inspiring insights that will expand your creative perspective, whether it's inside the gaming realm or beyond. I have something I am so excited to finally announce. If you are serious about designing games, not just thinking about games, not just listening to the podcast and dreaming about games, but actually finishing your own designs, then I have created something for you. It is the brand new Think Like a Game Designer Design Lab. It is a step-by-step system that I have created and tested with dozens of other creators and other aspiring designers that includes over 60 lessons to take you from generating ideas to building prototypes to finding playtesters, refining your core design loop, all the way through publishing, running a crowdfund, and even getting hired in the industry. You'll also get access to my private design Discord filled with me, members of the Stoneblade team, and other creators all actively building games. Plus, I've got some incredible bonuses for people who join right now and for longtime fans of the podcast. If you're ready to stop pretending and start actually designing games with intention, check out the Think Like a Game Designer Design Lab at justingarydesigns.com. In today's podcast, I'm thrilled to welcome Nate Heiss, a veteran game designer with over 25 years experience across trading card games, video games, board games, and more. Nate got his start, as I did, as a competitive Magic the Gathering Pro Tour player before joining Wizards of the Coast, where he helped design sets like Eventide, develop digital titles, and even created iconic cards like Goblin Guide, a card he recently described as fulfilling one of his biggest dreams in game design. And then he moved into producing AAA video games at studios like LucasArts, Sucker Punch, PopCap, and EA, where he worked on hits like Plants vs. Zombies Heroes. He has been an incredible designer and thinker and gamer, and most recently, he is now working with me directly on one of the exciting new recently announced project, Gundam Assemble, a tabletop skirmish miniatures game, which is launching in October of 2026. I've been working on this project for over 2 years, and I haven't been able to talk about it until recently. So it's very exciting. We go into some of the deep dives about that game, about what working together is like, about working at Stoneblade is like. We go into a lot of details around the general principles of game design and how game design and business models overlap. We get into the controversial topic of AI in game design and product creation and what the likely results are of that advancing technology and how we can leverage the classic fun of game design, the classic principles of design that we talk about every month on this podcast, and a world that has a constantly evolving frontier of new technology. I always love talking to Nate, and as I mentioned in the podcast, he is like one of the core examples of the people why I started this podcast, because he and I will have deep dive conversations like this all the time whenever we see each other, and now it's an opportunity for me to share those insights with you. So without any further ado, here is Nate Heiss. Hello and welcome. I am here with Nate Heiss. Nate, buddy, so great to see you.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello. Well, yeah. So this is, as we were saying right before we started recording, this is a little bit of a different kind of interview for me because, well, you and I see each other all the time. We've been working together now for the last, 4 months or so directly, something like that?
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we started something like that.
Yeah, so it's been great. But you and I have been friends for far longer than that, going back 25 some odd years from the Magic Pro Tour days. And we have stayed connected throughout your career into game design, even though this is our first chance to kind of directly work together, which is long overdue. But you're one of the people who is like exemplary of why I started the podcast, right? Like you and I would, whenever we'd meet each other, we would like magnetized to each other at like a conference, and we would just start talking about game design and just geeking out about things in life. And I love those conversations so much, and the podcast is an opportunity to share some of that wit and wisdom with the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's super fun to talk to you, obviously. And yeah, it's crazy thinking back. Like, it was like PT Rome or something, and like Magic, or I think I met you, or somewhere
Yep.
around there.
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
and then traveling around then, traveling around now, and
Yeah, so we're looking, Pro Tour Rome that's flashing us back to 1998 to date us both. It was a key pivotal moment in my Magic career. So I at that time I was just starting college, and I had won the national championships before, but I hadn't like made a ton of money playing. It was just kind of a cool thing, and I was intending to stop playing Magic and just go to college. And my dad was really excited about taking to go see Rome with me and like have that experience, which was like, okay, that's cool. So he was like, helped kind of fund the trip. And so this would be like, was going to be my last hurrah as a Magic player. And then, of course I made the top 8 and things went really well. And it was like, oh, well, I guess maybe this isn't the last thing that I'll be doing. But I will tell you, it was that, and people that want can actually read my Pro Tour report is still up on the dojo, the classicdojo.org, I think it is now. That's like the old, it's on the
wow,
front page. And so it's really funny for me to look at. And so the dojo, for those that don't know listening, was the original, like back in those days when the internet was young and Magic strategy was like a new forming, evolving thing. The dojo was where you went to go find things. And so people would post strategy analysis and tournament reports. And like, that's where like the original kind of online community of pros, I think, really kind of formed and came in. Do you have memories or experiences of that, Nate?
oh yeah, I mean, I wrote for the dojo. Actually, I wrote for pretty much all the sites moving forward. Like, I think I was the most prolific Magic writer for a while. It was like me
Mm.
and Mark Rosewater, right? Like we were duking it out.
I
And
think he's taken the title since then.
yeah, I haven't written anything in probably 15 years. But yeah, I was writing for like the Dojo and Mind Ripper and Scry
Oof,
and
didn't even
Burst
remember
and
those names.
yeah, exactly. It all comes flooding back. Well, Brain Burst turned into TCG Player,
Yep. Yep, which
so
turned out to be
that's
quite a
cool.
successful multi-million dollar
Mhm.
enterprise. And so yes, there is a so it's sort of interesting to see how these online communities inform the game experience and inform what our job is as designers, right? So there's some interesting hooks here, right? Because one of the things I try to do now with a lot of my designs, and you and I have had this conversation explicitly, is like try to recreate that experience that we used to have when you're like cracking open a pack of Magic and you didn't know what was in the pack, right? Like that was
Magical.
possible back then. It was this
Yeah.
really cool, really innovative thing. But then nowadays, because information is so prolific on the internet, because everything is available, spoilers are available before the set is out, the entire format has been figured out, and the best decks are pretty clear within 2 weeks, often, of the set being out. That process of discovery is not what it used to be. There's different opportunities for community and people to share, but how do you think about that in the modern era compared to back in the day, and how does that inform how you think about games?
Yeah, so anything was possible back then, and nobody knew anything. And so it was kind of like the gold rush, right? You're going to like race out to this mountain over there. Nobody knows what's over there. Maybe there's wild animals that'll get you. Who knows? Just start digging in the ground and see what happens. And it was super fun. People were experimenting with different strategies. People didn't know how the game really worked. Uh, like they mostly knew the rules, although the rules didn't understand how the rules worked sometimes. That was always interesting. Um, but but yeah, like the sort of like science and experimentation and just trying things and the camaraderie and community and teams that formed out of all of that was really exemplary of that age. And I do think as the internet got more mature, a lot of that magic is kind of lost. And there's still a community. There's great community and all that stuff, but it's very rare. I don't know. I feel like there's moments where, like, oh my gosh, somebody discovered some new technology in the game, and now everybody's adjusting and trying to figure out how to capitalize on that thing. It just doesn't happen all that often anymore. It's kind of sad, and I think
Yeah.
new games should try to figure out how to capture that feeling.
Yeah, well, it's very tricky to do, right? And I, again, I'm living proof of this, right? Like when I won the U.S. National Championships in '97, like I was a kid that didn't have access to any of this stuff, and I just like discovered thawing glaciers as a card that existed, and I
Yeah.
realized that was totally
Nicely
usable.
done.
And just to fill in people that were that are not as familiar, so thawing glaciers was a land in Magic where you could, as a resource card, it came into play tapped, meaning you couldn't use it the turn you played it, but then the turn afterwards you could use it to go get an extra resource out of your deck and put it directly into play, and then return thawing glaciers to your hand so you could keep reusing it. And they had just recently introduced the
Miserable
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, well, they had
card.
just, I don't think it was miserable. I thought it was great.
No, I mean, it was strong, but like it's like, oh, okay, let me shuffle my deck again. Let me shuffle my deck again. It's like the opponents will just fall asleep sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're getting into some of the game design lessons here, right? Which is things that the mechanics of that card where you have to go and search your deck and shuffle and pull out a card and then reshuffle again, and so that it certainly slows games down, which I agree with. As a player, it allowed me to morph my entire strategy around it, and then my goal as a player is like I want them to have to ban a card because of me. Like I want to like beat the game designers,
Oh
and
yeah,
like you guys messed up,
oh
and I'm going to show you how you messed up so badly that you'll break this thing in half, and you will have to ban it.
yeah. Yeah, it
I
happened a lot
succeeded a
back
couple
then.
times, uh,
Same.
but you know, well, and then so uh, anyways, to finish off that story, that ability to use that card and leverage the brand new mulligan rule of at the time where you could mulligan down one less card and keep mulliganing, because thawing glaciers would make up any card advantage. I could aggressively do that, so that was fun. But I think that the shift which you made right now is an interesting one that I want to talk about, because you and I both got to go through this, right? Which is the player mindset, which is like, I want to break this game, I want to win, I want to figure out how to do this, as the pro player mindset specifically. And then to the when I first started working as a game designer, I wanted to make sure that the players didn't beat me, right? Like I wanted to make sure that the game wasn't broken. And I was very, very good at making sure it wasn't broken, to the point that I over nerfed the set. The first,
Mhm.
this is one of the early versus system TCGs. This was the first thing I started working on, and then I realized I actually took the player's mindset and I messed up the game because of it. And then I had to learn the designer's mindset, which you already illustrated, which is like thinking about how do you craft a great player experience, and that and developing a game is not about making everything balanced and making sure nothing is broken for sure, but it's about, honestly, you want to push the envelope sometimes and give players that sense of discovery and excitement, and maybe there's something cool here kind of thing. So how do you think about that transition? Does that arc, did you follow that similar
Yeah.
arc?
Um. Yeah. I would say I never like over nerfed a set, but I definitely it took that adjustment. Uh,
Yeah.
because I was in R&D at Wizards. I was like, oh, I'm going to show these guys like I'm hot shit, right? And so they'd come in and I'd like be bashing them all at playtesting or whatever. And I mean, they're no slouches, right? Like you got Matt Place and Mike Turian, like all these like Hall of Fame Magic players in R&D that are very good at Magic. But it turns out, like once you've been at Wizards a few years, you kind of soften up a little because your priorities change. You're now thinking about design. You're not thinking about like cutthroat winning, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
uh, if you come in with that kind of mindset, yeah, you're going to win games. But that wasn't really the point. The
Right.
point was to like if you're doing well, your toys get taken away. So
Yeah, that's true. That it is a funny experience, right? When you're working on a design team, you having a strategy that you love and being really good at it just guarantees that they're going to nerf your strategy because you're winning all the time. So it is a perverse incentive in that situation. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, that idea that, and it's one of the reasons why it's actually pretty hard for me to play Magic these days, because I'm
Mhm.
not, I'm just nowhere near as good as I was. I don't focus on it. I don't know the cards. I don't have that same edge. And so while I
Different
can,
mindset.
yeah. Say it again.
It's a different mindset.
Yeah, it's a different mindset, and I love playing games to, like, break them apart and understand their constituent pieces, and how does this work, and how does this create this emotional impact, or how could this have been optimized or streamlined? And, I still love to win, as you know from our, we still play games, but it's like, that's so secondary to what is important, in games, and why we play them now. It's just yeah, it's definitely an interesting shift. Do you miss the competitive days?
Um, Sort of. I mean, I still compete, but I just do it at board games instead. So, like, I would
Okay.
go to the World Board Gaming Championships, and I would do that, for many years. And it's like, okay, these are some of the best board gamers in the world, ostensibly. I mean, I've had a hard time finding better ones, so I think they're pretty freaking good. And just competing at that level, and having that sort of like strategy. Um, that strategy where, or like the conversation, and it kind of reminds me of like the early team days of Magic. We're like, okay, how do we break this format? How do we? And it's like, okay, what is the best, three turns you can have in game X? What is the value of this room in the Castles of Mad King Ludwig? Weird things like that. So I still do get to scratch that itch, but um, obviously not at Magic. I'm not interested in competing at Magic anymore. Um, it's it's my favorite thing about working on Magic was just trying to make the craziest cards. Like, how insane can I make whoever the rules manager is at this moment, and will they quit because of these cards I'm making? That would be a victory, basically. So.
Okay, so I was trying to beat the players, and you were trying to beat the rules manager. Got it.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
So I'm like, all right, rules manager, here's Lich's mirror. Good luck with that.
Yeah, you
Some
could take the
some crazy stuff.
so we can't stop being competitive. We just do it in really bizarre ways now. It's
Yeah, exactly.
all right. All right.
These are pretty good.
Well, yeah. So it's one of these things, because I actually, this was a path not taken for me, right? Like, I never got to go work at WotC and go work on Magic. Magic was such a big part of my life. I ended up going down a different road. Actually, Mark Rosewater wrote, it was very kind. He wrote the introduction for my Think Like a Game Designer book, and it's a
Hmm.
short introduction, but it's a really sweet story of just him, like, assuming that he was going to get me to go work for him at Wizards, and then, once I kind of released Ascension and it, became a runaway success, he's like, damn it, I lost my chance. Like, all right, well, at least you get to learn from him in the book. And he and I have stayed friends for all this time. And he was one of the first guests on the podcast. He's going to come back on the podcast to talk about a brand new project soon. But
Nice.
I often wonder, right? There's a different set of skills that you learn in that environment. You're surrounded by so many brilliant people. There's also some politics and personalities and things like that to navigate. So what do you think you took out of that experience? How did it change you as a designer? How did it prep you for future work going and having that kind of battleground, if you will?
And what in Wizards?
Yeah.
So I don't think there's ever been a point in my life where I had been surrounded by a smarter group of people at work. Like I would walk into the room and often I'd be like, I'm the dumbest person here, which is like, I don't know, for guys like us, right? Like that's not a thing we think a lot.
Yep.
Maybe it's a little bit of ego, but just generally, it's like, wow, these people are like really, really smart, and I can learn a lot from them. And so soaking it, soaking it all up, and then the discourse, right? I mean, well, Wizards was famous for its loud, combative discourse, I'll say, and sometimes the loudest person in the room was the victor, but often it was like just really good game design discussion, and through that it kind of lays bare all of the ins and outs of why you may want to do a thing or not do a thing, and the effects it's going to have on the players, or how to even like understand how it's going to affect players, things like that. Lots of debate, and some of the stuff you don't get to learn until a year plus later, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is another area where, it so the realities of those lessons and the ground truth lessons of game design, where we learn like, okay, what does it mean, like why are we choosing to make this card powerful and this one not, what does it mean to have a color pie, what's the advantages of distinguishing, right, which is all stuff that a lot of
Hmm.
lessons that we've talked about, and I've talked about in previous podcasts in my book, etc. But I want to linger a little bit on the debating side of things, right, because this is one of those interesting areas that again, one of the reasons why we're such good friends is we love to sort of talk about these things and can debate these subjects. But there's a different type of debate, right? The way that the things have happened at WotC, a lot of the times what I've heard is, again, is people sometimes literally screaming at each other and
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to prove that they are right. And one of the
yes.
things that I have learned is, I ideally want to find out that I'm wrong. Like if I can, like, so I want to, because that's the opportunity I get to learn. I mean, honestly, I think that's been one of my superpowers, is like I love it when somebody proves me that I'm wrong. Like it's so great because I've just gotten
Yeah,
better. And
yeah.
I think that's something that you share. And I but I think, like as you mentioned, like you never over nerfed a set, in part because you were surrounded by smart people who were senior to you who were never going to let that happen, right? And
Right.
I when I was working, I was, a good debater and felt very sure of myself. And I was able to get my way a few more times than I probably should have.
Yeah.
Uh,
Charisma is not always an upside.
no, it's not. It's not. And so I realized over time that I actually need to overcorrect the other way. Like I will, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're seeing this in the room, right? Like I will try to steel man the opposing argument and make sure that the other side is like presented as well as it can be, or that the person presenting their side feels understood and heard, that we get it. And then only then will I then kind of present the alternatives, or what is the underlying principles and how do we get there. Like I it's a really important shift that uh is not necessarily easy to do, but has pretty big impacts in the R&D room, I think.
Yeah, I would say that's generally true. You know, we
uh,
all have our things where we're like, oh yeah, this has got to be that way, and just like that's the way things
yeah,
make sense. And then it's like, yep.
yeah.
But I think from what I've seen, you walk the walk.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, believe me, I fall down plenty of times, and we all have hills we die on that are really dumb. But sometimes, whatever, it is what it is. The lesson I take it from this is like I have, there was back in my 20s, I was very sure I was right about everything. Right, I was just
Oh
like confident in everything.
yeah.
Couldn't be wrong. Maybe some listeners can relate to this. This is just the reality. And then, turn 30, I realized I was wrong about a lot of things. Then another 5 years, I was wrong about a lot of things I was sure of when I was 30. And then 40, said every 5 years, I could look back on my life and look at some beliefs I was really, really sure of that now I'm very sure are dead wrong. And that
Yeah.
that happens enough
I don't
times,
think that's
you
stuff.
start to have
Yeah.
a little bit of humility, like not a ton, but a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's funny how often that can keep happening, right? You're like, oh, it's another 5 years. Oh, another
yeah.
5 years. Oh man, again.
Well,
Yeah.
and let's steel man the other side of this for a second, right? Because which is to say, like, when you are making a new game, or in my case, like it's running a company, or you're trying to build a new project, you've
Mhm.
been part of startups and stuff as well, which we
Mhm.
could dig into, right? You have to have some level of confidence slash arrogance slash hubris, whatever, that like I'm going to be able to do this thing better than anybody else, right? I'm going to make a thing that's new that people are going to want more than they want to spend their money on any other damn thing, or time even more precious. And so you have to have some level of like overconfidence, if you will, to be willing to take risks and create stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I think like running a business, or like diving into the arena with 1,000 other competitors, like you have to be kind of crazy. Like it doesn't work otherwise. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's like you got to throw all this caution to the wind and just tackle it head on, and just be like, yeah, it's going to be great. Let's just keep going, keep going. It's amazing. And I think the people who are really strong at that and keeping positive attitudes around it, their success rate is higher than the people who are more negative on their chances. Basically, like confidence works.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. There's a degree to which it's better to be like confident and able to move forward and take risks and then fall on your face and learn and get, as long as you have the skills to learn from the losses and get back up, than to be overly conservative and not sure. And this is the big lesson for me, and I've told the story on the podcast before, and maybe I've told it to you, but when I was working at Upper Deck and I started working on the World of Warcraft miniatures game, and I kind of had to become a product manager, and I presented it to the board, like, and to the CEO, and like had this big presentation. So I'm like a kid in my mind. I'm like 27, and I've now moved from just game designer to business guy, and I'm presenting to this, $500 million CEO and their whole rich mahogany table and everything. And I did all my research, and I'm like, super nervous, and I go and I give this presentation, and then they, there's this pause when I'm done. And I'm like, what's happening? And then they start talking about the idea, and they talk about the game. And then it's like, at first, they're like, okay, I think they like it. I think they're going to go forward. And then I start listening in more detail because it was a little fuzzy at first. And they were just saying things that I now knew because I'd done enough research. They were just dead wrong. Like, they had no clue what they were talking about, but they just acted so sure. And I was like, and my first response was terror, because it was like, oh my God, like, this is like a multi-million-dollar project and nobody knows what they're doing. And then split second later, like, this like icy calm comes over, and it's just like, oh, nobody knows what they're doing. Like, got it. Like, they're just making this up. Like, I could totally do that. And a year later, once I'd launched that game, I quit and started my company. And so there's a degree that you just got to learn the lesson that I've made plenty of mistakes, but it's better to make the mistakes that push you in the path of your, what you want out of life, than to not make mistakes and be trapped in somebody else's game.
Yeah, that sounds great. I've actually said this to Aaron Forsyth in the past. I was like, nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody is like acts confident, but like no, none of us know. And I was like, oh, was that a mistake to say? Because now I'm not acting confident, right? I mean, this was back in my like teens or early 20s or whatever,
Sure.
but it's very comforting. It's to know that well, like when the entire like Team CMU Pittsburgh crew decided to like go whole hog into being professional Magic players was when Randy Bueller won for Chicago that one year, 97, I think. And our thought was this: he's like the worst guy in our playgroup, right? Like we can all do this better than him, right? And like, of course, he's an amazing player, Hall. Like
yeah.
No,
That's
it's like,
great.
oh, they can't do it. Like, well, I can do it if they're doing that. It gives you such a leg up in your ability to like not freeze under these kind of conditions. It's
Right.
very powerful.
Yeah. This quote may be apocryphally credited to Winston Churchill, but I love it anyway, which is success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And I just like I do I think it's like it's you get to choose the attitude that you want to take to life. It's like the character class that you're like adopting for life. If it's like the kind of warrior that's just going to go forward and charge into battle, like, as it turns out, you're gonna be more successful as long as you can also bring maybe bring a mage along that can help you understand when you made a mistake and change directions every now and then. But it's that take a frame of being willing to take risks that are calculated risks, and be willing to put a stake in the ground and say, I'm willing to take, like, leadership is not knowing what to do. It's being willing to like make an assertion and stand behind the consequences, right? Like, I'm going to say that, I'm going to believe in this. Here it is. Like, let's go. And if it's wrong, then it's on me, and we'll deal with it. And like that to me is like the shift that I had to make. And you can either sort of comment on that, or just we could pivot it towards like, how do you think about how you then directed your career, right? So the path from I'm a Magic Pro player to I work on Magic and design, that's like pretty easy jump. Like, get it, we all thought about it. Then from there, you've worked on so many big projects and digital games and IPs and whatever. Like, how do you think about when you're steering your own ship? How did that process work for you?
So I'll answer that, but first I want to dovetail on something about what you were just saying, and it's a similar thing, but I think it's like super important, so it's worth saying, which is the success metrics involved uh, matter. Like a lot of people are really oriented in business and games and things like that towards making a lot of money or having success or a big release. Um, but at the end of the day, I think it's really important for all of us to keep in mind, like, why are we doing this in the first place? It's like we enjoy making games, right? Like, let's just have fun and like enjoy, smell the roses along the way, and that is a success in itself. If I'm
Yep.
able to sustain myself and make games the whole time, like I'm doing pretty good. Like that's not bad. So maybe I'll have great success along the way too. But I think framing your success metric as how are you spending your time? Is that quality? Are you being fulfilled by it? Is a huge part of it. And so it's like it's important for folks not to get like too mired in the like, oh my god, is this gonna like work and stress and like all the things. Like there's a million things to be worried about in making games, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is what is it? Yeah, what does success look like in life, and what is it that you're really afraid of on the flip side, right? Like a lot of times people when they think about making these leaps, like for me, dropping out of law school and becoming a game designer or quitting my job at Upper Deck and starting a game company, like those are scary things, but if they work out, my life is amazing. And if they don't work out, like once I actually like got down to the like real like granular level, well, okay,
Mhm.
what happens? I lost a year, maybe I lost a little bit of money, and then I just go back to law school or go get another job or whatever. Like I've lost very little, in fact. And so knowing what you should be afraid of and knowing what you're trying to play for, yeah, both are key. And yeah, great points to kind of talk about is for people that are out there thinking about how to navigate their own life.
Yeah, and so the other question, so being at Wizards, I had a great opportunity to work on a variety of kinds of games. So I worked on Magic, obviously, but I also worked on pretty much everything else they made during my tenure there. And I ran stuff like for Avalon Hill, making Axis and Allies games and like minis games, Axis and Allies minis, War at Sea, Guadalcanal, Battle of the Bulge, Anniversary Edition. Some of these games have been re-released actually just like last year or something by Renegade, which was
Yeah,
really sweet to see them on the shelves again. I'm like, yay, go!
that's
So
awesome.
it's like getting that wide breadth of experience in both card game design, minis game design, and then some digital game design with the whole like GleamX thing they were doing at the time. Um, I was able to kind of get a sampler platter, right, of all the different kinds of things and really think about what fills my cup. And from there, I wanted to go into video games and made the leap to go work at Sony after that in Denver, working on. I mean, it was still card games, but they were video game card games, right? So,
Yeah, it's an easy jump, a natural
yeah.
move over. And so how did you
Yeah.
think about, as someone who's also done the, both sides of the digital physical game space, how do you think about working on digital games and that side of the world versus physical games?
Well, uh, I think that digital games pay way better for one. Uh,
Yeah.
like,
Ah,
like it's just
facts.
video games just way more money that make more money than paper games unless you're Magic or Pokemon or something.
Right.
Like the ceiling's just way higher, so it's easier to make a career out of it. I guess. I worked on like mobile games for a really long time, like 10 years or something. I mean, I still work on them, I guess. So, but I work on a variety of things. Um, it's harder in some ways and it's easier in some ways. It's harder because you can't just write words on a piece of paper and say, yeah, it means that. That's how it works. And then it just now magically somehow it all works fine because it's a physical game and we have brains, we can understand it. It's like, no, somebody has to go code it or whatever. I mean, maybe things are going to change now with like, vibe coding or whatever. And the AI can just like make your cards actually work. I don't know. It's all so crazy.
It is
Oh,
it is a crazy time. I had literally one of the people from I think like game designer class said like, "Hey, look, I made Ascension Tactics a digital game in less than 30 minutes that just like works and plays the game. I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like that is a very complicated game engine. Like that's insane.
Yeah, but does that work because they fed ascension tactics into it, right? Like it's like, well, it already
Yeah.
exists, so we can make it again. But if it didn't exist, could it make it? I
Well,
don't
but
know.
yeah, but the different, yeah, the idea that certainly, well, whatever, we can go down this rabbit hole because I do find it really interesting. But the fact that when this was a barrier for building digital games, when I think about them, it's like it's so much more money to make potential to make, but it's also so much more money, to produce, right, to create it. And so you have to have engineers, and the iteration cycles take longer. And so if I build I have to program a thing and it doesn't work, then wow, I've wasted months of engineering time, or the game engine's not good. So you have to like it's a much higher risk, higher reward, just like very cumbersome process a lot of times to get to results. And so the idea that like AI can help cut that down, and so I could just design a game and iterate way faster, is something I'm very excited about.
Yeah, I will be interested to see how things shake out over the next few years in that realm. I think that yeah, games. I think like designing games is really hard, and so I don't think it's going to help with that so much. But in the execution of games, there's definitely a lot of things that people can do with it. But there's also a lot of like ethical quandaries and backlash, and
That's right.
that
That
piece. So yeah,
Yeah. What things is it okay to use AI for? Which ones isn't? What's the right balance there?
yeah,
I've written I've talked about this a bunch. I've written about it. I've had AI experts on the podcast, and I'm planning to have more. I think it's very interesting because my whole life is about empowering creatives and helping people to be able to live more creative, fulfilling lives. And I think a lot of the people who are a lot of the backlash against AI is that it's taking away creative jobs, though. Yeah, I would contend I think it's actually going to create way more over time, because there's more opportunities to create than you would have. Maybe if whether it's whether it's jobs or not, I'm not sure, but the opportunity to be creative and make your visions come to life is I think the real exciting part for me.
yeah. I don't know. Like, I think it's different if you're like a digital artist or like like a painter versus like a writer or like a game designer or something like that.
Yeah,
There's different struggles, um, and I don't know. So like I always try to figure out like, okay, well, clearly people have like ethical quandaries with this, but like, where's the line? Because I'm like thinking like a game designer, right? Like, I'm like, where's the line?
yeah,
I want to understand this. So like, when you're using like Adobe Photoshop or something, there's like content aware fills, and those like use AI now or whatever. So it's like, okay, well, everybody uses Photoshop, but nobody is griping about that. So
right.
so there's like some use of it people seem to be fine with, and others people aren't. So
Yeah,
so that,
it's funny. Like we talked about the programming side of it. Like
mhm,
most programmers I know that are actually like they're like thrilled. They're some of them are scared, but a lot of them are like, yeah, great. This could do so much of the coding work. That's fantastic. Whereas artists don't feel that way, and I don't know. I have
yeah,
like attorneys that I have massive contracts I have to review, and I have pay. I did go to law school, so I can do it myself somewhat, but I still pay attorneys a lot of money. And now the idea that AI could do that for way less, like that sounds pretty good to me. Maybe not to the attorneys, but it's like
right,
it's
right.
just a very is the world better off with a lot more attorneys getting paid a lot more money to do these things, or is it better off with like more of that money being able to use towards the creative projects or to run the company properly? Like there's
Yeah,
no
I
easy
think
answers.
when you put it in terms of attorneys, I think people might think differently of it. But when it's like, oh, the person who's the anime character or whatever, and like they want to draw the lines,
Yeah,
as opposed to like the engineers, they don't want to write the lines. It's different kind of
yeah.
lines. So it's like, okay, it's complex like anything, right? So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see it play out. But we don't need to get too rabbit hole on that.
No, yeah, it's a topic I do cover. Again, as I said, for those that are interested, I cover it in my podcast with Ethan Malik. Some articles I've written on the Substack about this process. I think it's an important debate to have. I understand that, all different sides of it. I think it's like, I think there is a utopian world that could potentially be here where we're all empowered to do creative things and the kinds of upstream art that would never be possible, right? Like you and I could create a Marvel level production movie, using tools that are available to us for a few $100s instead of, millions of dollars. That's awesome. But also the person who was, going to be creating those visuals is not there. So anyway, there's more to that, but we could get back into the process of building digital games, pre.
I think if everybody had enough money to just like live their life comfortably, I don't think this debate would be so big.
Yeah, that's the ideal world, right? Is that we move into a space where the the value of like what AI and robots eventually will allow us to do is like the cost of goods for everything drops dramatically because everything is so cheap and intelligence is on tap, and the value that's produced from that gets distributed well enough so that nobody has to work. Right, we're in the Star Trek future, right? Nobody has to work to live. You don't. Money is a foreign concept. We just are fine. And then we can pursue things that even if the AI is better than me at drawing a picture or better than us eventually at game design and every other damn thing, let's just posit that that's true. That's fine. We could still have like artisan game design projects where it's like humans that get to make things and look what I did, or an artisan, drawing a human drawing a painting because you love to draw, right? Like I cook for my family, not because it's better than what a chef could do or because I'm going to make money from it. It's because I enjoy that process and I like to be able to provide for my family. The computers are better than the best humans at chess and have been for some time, but we still love to play chess and we still admire the best human chess players. So it doesn't, just because the machines are better than us at everything doesn't mean like we don't have room to enjoy life. And I actually think games and the communities that we build through games and the ability to have like challenges and competition within these protected spheres is actually a key to that successful future being an enjoyable, challenging, meaningful space.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I hope it does get distributed, fairly and equally, all this
It's a
value.
big if. It's a big if. I will give you that. But so I think and I have written about this stuff, but I do think it's like having these conversations, and having the culture shift to realize it, right? I don't think there's a way to stop this like takeover in some sense. Like the ability, like it's just they're going to keep getting better. Even if AI didn't get any better than it is today, just its capabilities are pretty amazing. And once those like disseminate through society and people can start actually using them, again, this is you getting a world-class doctor in your pocket and access to incredible therapists and coach and doctors and like key resources in your life, in addition to fun things like being able to make I made a custom song for my mom for her birthday, which is like a full Broadway production level song that's like very custom tailored to her, which I could never do, but brought so much joy to her. Like I can do that sort of stuff in a way that was never, that stuff is here today. And it's just, once you get past that, we have to be able to, as a culture, get ready for the disruption that's coming, which we have to be able to address, being able to distribute those resources, being able to protect ourselves from the, make sure that the AI stays aligned with our interests and that the companies that run the AI stay aligned with cultural interests, and then understand where we derive meaning from.
Starlink, Skynet, Starlink.
Yeah, what could go wrong? No, listen, I'm still 80/20, pro, positive outcome to negative outcome, but 20% negative outcome in this case is pretty bad. So we should do everything in our power to reduce that, and that is just being willing to have real conversations, like not just like demonizing the other side or understanding where we're coming from. There's going to be real positives, real benefits. There's going to be real harms. And as game designers and in living in this space where we're very lucky to be like creatively fulfilled and able to like we kind of can do what we want with our lives, right? You've followed me in the path of being a digital nomad, right? So you can literally live anywhere, as well as create things that people enjoy, and literally our job is to make people happy. Like the more that people can have those kinds of freedoms, the better world we're in.
Yeah, I'm into that.
All right, we got down that rabbit hole pretty far, so
Whoops.
that's all right. It is. It is. Well, it's it's like it's one of the more interesting things that's happening in the world that impacts everything that we do. But when we think back to sort of zooming back to working on kind of digital games and what the hell, while we're in the subjects, while we're in the dangerous waters of controversial subjects, let's talk about business models for games, right? You working on these mobile games, and you worked at Zynga also, or no?
No,
Were
I
you
didn't
part of
work at
that
Zynga.
crew?
I did run game design, and monetization at Machine Zone for about a
Okay,
year.
got it.
And then, yeah, they're one of the more, um, I guess.
Okay, so you've been on the dark side of this as on the light side, and so how do you think about that sort of thing, right? Because to some extent, leveraging these game design tools, psychological tools, to help make your game more fun, and more engaging, and get people to come back more often, that could be a positive thing. Also, as we
Mhm.
well know, it can be a negative and exploitative thing. How do you think about that in your own work, or even areas where you maybe got pulled to the dark side because of the place you were at and what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, I do always advocate for the light as much as I can, see it. Um, it is tricky sometimes because like like I was talking about, like, hey, where's the line? We're talking about like Photoshop and the content multiplayer filter, right? Like, I'd say, like, okay, well, gambling isn't the greatest thing in the world here. Like, we should probably try to avoid gambling and like putting that in the hands of children and things like that. But it's like game design and psychology and reward structures. Like, these are all very tightly linked and have they're all in the same family. So where's the line is a little hard sometimes, and it can really just depend on your perspective or the type of game it is. I think it's not the first time I had this conversation today, weirdly. But we kind of shot ourselves in the foot in some way. Where like we had it great. We had this, like, you can buy a product, and you spend some money and you get a product and you get the whole game, and the developers like happy to get this money, players happy to get this product. But then somebody's like, what if it was free though? And they were much more successful with this premium microtransaction kind of model, and that's held up. It's still more successful. It's always more successful. People are like, I hate these free to play games, but they keep just crushing it in the marketplace. And so it's really hard for game devs to say, yeah, we aren't going to do that. Many do, and like in one of the indie games I'm working on, I'm doing it as a single purchase model, like not free to play. I specifically didn't want to do a free to play model because, like, I'm just tired of it. I want to just deliver some amazing gameplay value for your, whatever it is, $20, and $25, whatever, and we go from there.
Sure.
Uh, yeah.
Well, all right. Let me steel man the other side of this here, so we can have a proper discussion of it. Right. In principle, the old version, the old model says, "Hey, you got to give me $20, $30, $40, $50, whatever the game costs, upfront, to hope that you could hope that it's good, and hope that you enjoy it,
Oh,
and you don't get to find out till after you give me the money, and then that's it. It's over. You're stuck whether you like it or not." And that's not that great for the consumer. It's also a huge barrier to getting your game discovered. And
yeah.
in the free to play version, it allows anybody to just try it and see if they like it. And if they like it, they can spend money, and congratulations, you get to spend as much as is right for you personally. You don't have to spend anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why it's so successful. I mean,
Yeah.
it's brilliant, and it works.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend people to do it if they
Yeah.
are trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
succeed in business.
Well,
Uh,
but and then to then just to jump back to the other side of the fence. One of the other things that people maybe don't realize is, like, the expectations of players in those free to play games is very different, right? So a paid game experience, be it physical or digital, it's a complete, game in itself. I pay for it. I expect to have that experience. Maybe there's expansions, which I kind of want to have, but there maybe there's not, and it's okay. But with a free to play game, especially these ones that, are trying to sort of monetize well, the expectation is that there's a live operations and there's tons of content and it's continually ongoing. And so the support and the cost to run those games is pretty astronomical. As someone currently running one of those
Yes.
games, I could say it to you directly.
Yeah. Like one of the competitive advantages of companies who do free to play games is the companies that think about live service like content costs and like what's going to take to turn the crank. Those are the companies that end up succeeding more, not necessarily because their game is better, but it's because they can turn the crank more at a cheaper cost. So like even if their content's only half as engaging, if they're making it at one tenth the cost, then they're in a good spot. So it's like it's a different kind of business problem to be thinking about that doesn't really relate to how much fun the player's having exactly, but it does kind of try to quantize that a bit, which is strange from your typical like how do we make this game awesome sort of viewpoint.
Yeah.
It's like how do we deliver the best nuggets of value given the costs involved over time? It's like a
Yeah.
very different problem.
Yeah, I mean that problem exists in all different places, right? Like I think and this is something I like to be able to share because I'm somewhat uniquely positioned as like starting as a game designer, but also running a company that launches physical games, digital games, and
Mhm.
because they all have those cost problems, right? Like we're preparing for our grass fed deck building game prototype available to follow on GameFound now for those that are listening, which is a game I'm excited about because it like helps teach these principles of regenerative farming, and a portion of the proceeds are going back to help like actually save the planet. And then I started doing the math on like what it costs to produce that and which components I can fit in. And we've got like a cool cooperative game mode that we want to throw in, but the cost of goods is just a lot higher, especially with tariff uncertainty and nonsense going on.
Yeah.
So I may have to like break that out into another product. And so like, there's a cost to produce, and that calculation still happens in the physical game world just like it does
Yeah.
in the digital game world. I think it's sort of naive for, it's understandable, but it's a sort of naive perspective as a game designer to think like, oh, well, I just want to make the most awesome thing. I don't care what it costs. I don't care how it presents to the player. I think those things have to, maybe there's a portion of game development where you should just like, blue sky, do whatever you want and, see what the most fun thing you can come up with is. But at some point, the rubber has to meet the road if you're going to make a product that people actually buy and want and you could continue to make.
So game companies have, like digital game companies have solved this by creating two different roles, right? So there's the game designer role, whose job is to be like, no, I want all the things and have it be fun as possible, right? And then there's the product manager role, who's like, we got to eat though, and so we need to like pay the paycheck. So how are we going to make some money? How are we going to make this cost, efficient? And what kind of like live service are we going to run? Like, what is the value we're delivering to the player? Like, because that's the thing about free to play games is they don't make any money unless the player thinks it's worth spending their money on it. So, like, it has to be good in a way.
Well,
Otherwise,
yeah.
they will spend money and then they'll just be like, well, this was terrible. I quit. And that's it. So they are sort of held to a higher standard than the box products, like you were saying, um, even though they feel uh, cheaper in some ways. You play some of these games like, oh, is this really a game or is this just like a scare box or something? And I just like having a thing and numbers are going up.
Well,
Like
yeah,
sometimes,
and yeah, there's a it's interesting that it came from this individual, but uh Elon Musk talked about the his goal with Twitter/X is maximize unregretted minutes, right? Which is we can leave aside whether you agree with this or not, but this idea that like optimizing for engagement has all of these perverse effects, right? Optimizing for keeping somebody coming back. And so there's all these different things where
Mhm.
social media can do this with, rage and clickbaits things and things that enrage you. Games can do
Mhm.
this with like these kind of slot machine and kind of addictive cycle things, or you could do it with really fun gameplay and really interesting mechanics and things that like I give it's rare that I get addicted to a game nowadays, right? Like because I will usually play games and just like work and just to learn about them, and then I play games that I'm working on. But when Marvel Snap came out, I got freaking addicted to that for like a couple months, where I would just like play every day because it was really, really fun. Like the gameplay, like it was a very tight gameplay loop, really well done. For anybody that has not heard my episode with Ben Brode, the chief creative officer to build that game, you should definitely listen to it. But or Slay the Spire, like there's just games that just like, this is fun, and that's okay to get people hooked and addicted to a loop that's like enjoyable and fun that you can look back on and tell stories about.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned Slay the Spire. I want to talk about roguelikes a little bit here.
Okay, let's talk about roguelikes.
All right, so like we led off with talking about like how do we create that sort of exploration and that sort of wonderment of like anything can happen and it's great. And I think that roguelike games are that's where it's happening these days, at least. You play a roguelike game and it starts small and then it just kind of explodes into this possibility space that like so many different things can happen, and every time you play it's like different and interesting. I think that's like really cool space.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. So do you mind defining roguelikes? I think most of the audience will be familiar with it, but just for those that aren't, how do you define a roguelike? What's happening here that makes it so unique?
I once wrote a white paper on roguelikes for Project Horseshoe, so I theoretically should be qualified to do this. We'll see if I do.
Okay, let's see how you do theoretically.
A roguelike is a game with some core gameplay loop, and then it's cyclical. So you're going to play that same gameplay loop over and over and over again, but new elements are added to the loop in a randomized fashion, usually, so that each time you run the loop, you experience a new set of combinatorics of randomized elements. And then often those loops are set into larger loops. And so it kind of creates this sort of engine of loops where all sorts of explosion of possibilities are happening and you progress through them in that way. And so it's like smaller gears turning larger gears is a way to think about it.
Interesting. Yeah. That's definitely a more abstract and formal way to describe that than I've heard before. So I do like it. I think, yeah, when I think about roguelikes, I think you're right to identify like that it's that the game experience is, encapsulated such that, there's so much variance within that single run through that you get to experience the entirety of this arc of like kind of growth and discovery, and then it's over, and then for the most part your progress is reset and the randomized the scenario is randomized sufficiently so that you could just run it again and it's a totally new experience.
Right, but that little bit of progress that's the bigger gear that's turning.
Yeah. And so because we do as a species, and we want to make feelings of progress. And so the world where my game is entirely reset at the end and I get no progress and no, cookie or, progress bar or something is a little bit discouraging for me continuing to play, even though the vast majority of the experience can be, completely reset there.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely discouraging. Like, I played a lot of Rogue back in, like, the late 80s or whatever it was, or no, early 90s, I think it was, that I was playing it. And that's where it started, kind of like the game completely reset when you die. You get as far as you can, and then you're dying, like, oh my gosh, I have to do the whole thing over again. And as long as there's no save button, like,
yeah, it's always fascinating. I mean, at least it was a success, and it spawned this entire genre. Even if, it's a really funny space. So I think you're right that is where the kind of that special sauce that Magic had back in the day does kind of live now, because it's encapsulated in this box. You get that like what's in the box, what's in the pack kind of experience, and because you have to adapt to whatever it is that's happening, you're intentionally constrained within that space. And so yeah, I have many projects in the roguelike space that I have incubated and started thinking about. We actually added a roguelike mode into SoulForge Fusion because you could take
Nice.
your customized deck into a randomized campaign set of battles, and then your deck still earns experience and gains some bonuses, but otherwise it's back to square one when you start over. And so I do think that kind of thing is a very deep and interesting hook.
Yeah. I've been working on a Tetris roguelike that I'm like super excited about as like an indie project, and it's really fun to be able to like put all these things into motion and like apply all of my learnings over the years of playing all these games and thinking about them and see it explode. But I think the thing that a lot of the roguelikes are missing is the that Magic had is the community multiplayer sort of aspect around them.
Yes.
And it sort of lives in the streaming space now. Like so, like you see like people streaming Balatro or something, and like
Right.
people are watching, and so there is still some of that. Like, wow, this is crazy! Everybody check this out. But it's in this kind of like asynchronous way. It's like less of a I don't know communal experience. I think.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. So I have I've had a project that's been in my back burner for a while now, which whatever. I don't know if I've talked about it publicly, but I think I've talked about it to you, but I really want to make uh a roguelike that's the like a Fortnite style like arena roguelike, right? Like so
oh,
there's this
yeah.
yeah, so this ability to like imagine like Slay the Spire meets Fortnite. And so there's some in the global map that you're going through, you can be battling different monsters and upgrading your deck, but the map is shrinking, and eventually you're going to start running into other players and fighting them. Like I've wanted to make
Yeah,
that for so long. I think it would be so cool.
yeah, I
um
think that would be pretty cool. Like on some level, the auto battlers have like a slice of that feeling, but they're not. It's not the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So how do you think about auto battlers in that space? And this is basically, and again, maybe we should sort of describe that too. It's like, it takes a lot of the idea of like, the drafting for Magic. And so you kind of can draft your deck and the effects you have, but then the play is, as obviously in the name, automatically battled and played through. So all of it is in that selection process, discovery process. What do you think the magic is there?
I mean, I think it's great to like make your choices and then watch the stuff play out. I had actually had built a prototype for this kind of game back when I was at Wizards. If Climax had come out, maybe we would have been way too early for the auto battler trend. But uh, I I I think that how do I put this? Um, Hearthstone, Hearthstone came out with the auto battler mode for their game, right? And it was so fun, it hurt Hearthstone
Yeah.
because nobody knows how to monetize an auto battler. Like, not
Yeah.
really. That's not something anybody's ever like cracked that nut yet, and they're really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing where I mean both roguelikes and auto battlers sort of have this problem where the very nature that you're resetting to zero and then, playing this experience again means that you can't, most of these free to play games you're sort of buying power or buying collectible objects or buying cosmetics and permanence of some kind, and the very nature of these games is no permanence, or very very
Yes,
limited permanence.
yes. It's
So
very hard to
interesting.
monetize. I think the rogue like free to play games that have done like best in the market are they monetize mostly through ads and things. But
Sure.
you can buy power. It's like the Archero kind of games. Um, you can buy power, but then you're just shooting yourself in the foot, like you're taking away the enjoyment of the game.
Right. Yeah. It's one thing to say I'm buying power and bonuses to battle against other players, where there's this arms race, which creates a lot of the monetization for a lot of these games. And it's another thing to buy power when you're just, in this sort of PVE experience, this kind of solo experience. You're just kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, you're taking like the fun of like seeing what you get and having to make the best of the cards and abilities and things available, and like that, the unique permutations of that is exactly where the fun is. So if I always bring a bazooka when I discover the bow and arrow, I just don't care, and that's no longer fun for me, right?
Yeah, because it takes away the variance and the mystery and the combinatorics is now reduced.
Yeah,
You're like, oh,
yeah,
that's less fun. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's a
it's interesting.
fascinating space.
We talk about the free to play games, and I'm like, well, there's many games that are not getting made that would be really fun because they don't work with free to play.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, this is one of the areas, not to get back in the rabbit hole, where like I am excited about what AI allows us to do, right? Because there are many games that I will for sure want to make, but cannot monetize well enough to justify the cost to produce them. And I think there's a lot of games like that out there. There's a lot of people that are listening to this podcast that have games and game ideas like this. And if you can just reduce that cost of production enough, then I think there's going to be an explosion of some really cool, really niche games that would, just are impractical in today's environment.
Oh yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years for sure. I think like 100,000 games came out last year or something. So seeing an explosion from where we're already at, then my question is like, okay, how does anybody find what they're looking
Well,
for?
that's I literally just had a conversation about this an hour ago, right, where it was another guest podcast I double recorded today, and it was about this subject in the tabletop game space, right, where there was like, it was the numbers like an order of magnitude less. It was like 10,000 tabletop games got released last year, right, which is an insane number for the tabletop game space, but and
Yeah.
and now 10x that for digital games.
Mhm.
And I think it's not unreasonable to see those numbers like 10x again over the next 5 years. And so,
I only get 24 hours a day though, right? Like I don't
I don't know. Maybe you just get the AI to play the games for you too. Oh man.
Just tell me how fun they are.
Yeah, just tell me how fun they are. Did I win? Did I have a good time? Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate you. Uh um Well, what will happen? So what I would predict is a couple fold, right? One, there's the challenge, and I encourage people to listen to the other podcast with Ross Thompson, because we literally talk about the marketing and how you get discovered and how do you break through the noise, and like we go through all that stuff in detail because that's his expertise. And so I won't rehash that here, but I will say that like what I think will happen in this world, which again, to reiterate, I think is a good thing. Like what it means, like the cost of producing goes down, which means more people get to create cool stuff, which means more cool stuff exists. But it has the natural downside of, okay, there's so much cool stuff. How do I find the right things for me? And I think what we're going to see is like a lot more of these like niche products, a lot of things that like, this is a game that I personally would really, really love, because I love, EDM music and TCGs and turtles, or, whatever. And there's a game that is just a, rock and roll or, like a rave turtle TCG, or, whatever, right? Like that can exist in a world where the costs of production are low enough. And so I think you're going to see it's and this has positive and negative effects for the culture, right? Like that, just like with TV and social media and streaming broadcasting, so now you can have channels that are very niche to whatever you're interested in. It's great, you can watch whatever you want, but it also means that we don't have that same shared narrative, that same shared infrastructure, the same no band is going to be as big as the Beatles ever again, right? Because there's no, like, the fact there was only a few channels and a few bands and a few things to discover, like that's just not, I don't think. Maybe Taylor Swift proves that
all
wrong.
right.
I'm not
Let
sure.
me give you the counter side of that argument.
Great.
So, I mean, you could talk about like Taylor Swift or whatever, and
Yeah.
like I think the power shifts more to the platforms, right? So, Steam or Apple or Google or Epic or whoever holds the keys to the platform just gets so much power in the situation to spotlight, certain things, whatever makes sense for them to spotlight. And I'm not saying that they're abusing this power or anything. I'm just saying it's just like the nature of the situation is when discoverability is like the number one, like let's just like take it that of the 100,000 games that are released, let's say 1,000 of them are really, really good. They're 1% the best games
Yeah,
that were
by
released in the
definition,
year.
1%
By
of the one
definition,
percenters.
exactly. Right, they're the 1%ers. And so, like, even amongst those really, really good games, there's 1,000 of them, right? Like, these platforms have to pick what to what to be pushing. Um, and so, I think because everybody's aggregated to these centralized platforms, like we all kind of do all play. Like everybody's playing Fortnite, everybody's playing Roblox, everybody's it's like these are like ubiquitous kind of games.
Well, yeah, but I mean, those games are pretty old now, right? I mean, they're both like a decade old or more, right? Like they're pretty insanely, and so I actually think that's one of those areas of like audience capture that may not be replicable in the modern world. Like it's not like I had a guest on the podcast who previously designed like created like Halo, and now he makes mods for Fortnite because it's so much easier to get discovery and to produce for
Mm-hmm.
Fortnite than he is to produce a new game. Like that's a
Yeah,
big deal. That's a big shift. So I think
I,
Fortnite and Roblox, etc., have become platforms in themselves,
right.
in a way that I think is hard to replicate now. So to a sense that reinforces your point, and I I agree that the power does move to these platforms, but we're also seeing a trend, and not to harp on AI as both the cause of and solution to all of life's problems, but AI is now like social media very much used to be, and is kind of in this transition period of being like about followers and like influencers and saying like I'm paying attention to you, and it's now in this process of sort of shifting into like from social media to interest media, where things like TikTok, it's not really a lot about who you follow, it's about the things that you're interested in, and the algorithm will
Mm-hmm.
show you the stuff that you're more interested in. And so these platforms, yes, they have a lot of power, but they're incentivized to show you the stuff that you would genuinely love because that's what's going to keep you there. And so Steam showing you games on there, or TikTok showing you videos that appeal to you, like they are, in principle, those algorithms are going to be way better at being able to even dissect the very details of your game and say, oh, actually, I'm sending this to the rave turtle guy, he's going to love this one.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I mean, I think Steam is a pretty fair platform altogether, but it seems that what game devs are mostly concerned about is like, how do I optimize my Steam algorithm? Like, it's just people are obsessed over it because that is what is mattering more than almost anything else that they do. Aside from making a good game, obviously, like they have to.
Yeah.
That's kind of serious. But
Yeah. Yeah, well, and not to get into it because we do cover it a lot more in the other podcasts, but I think there's always a underpriced channel for attention, right? Like what we care about. I think the resources that matter in this world are attention and trust. That I can if I can get your attention and I can earn your trust, then like there's a lot of it. That's what an influencer is basically, right? And that's why they have
yeah,
influence. It's by because they've created some trustworthy persona, or they've provided enough value to you. And so finding ways to do that, that allow you to reach an audience, that allow you to produce and continue to deliver things that are hopefully serving that audience. Like we don't know what the next thing is or how that works. Like I'm actually making a bet on like more physical stuff, like being in physical locations and like having
well,
real connections that are not replicable by robots. Not yet anyway.
I hope so. That would be encouraging.
Yeah.
I mean, I do love an escape room. I've done hundreds of escape rooms. I'm very
Yeah, escape room is a
big
great example of that. Actually, let's use this as an opportunity to pivot before we run out of time to the physical game that you and I work on together, that I've only recently been allowed to talk
what
about.
we're doing
And
that.
so I, I just got back from the Bandai Card Fest in Las Vegas, where I was able to demo for the first time to the public Gundam Assemble, the coolest freaking thing I've probably ever worked on, with a giant global anime brand where they have already been making. They have Gunpla, which is a massive community that builds these robots and paints them, and then they just put them on a shelf. They don't do anything with it. And when I learned about this, I thought that was crazy. Like now we have a whole game that you can actually play. And so that's like something I'm very excited about. It's not coming out until October of this year, 2026 as we're recording this, but more details and things are coming out about it. And we'll have a video by the time this post is live. There'll be a video of me on YouTube somewhere explaining the game and talking about all the stuff. But so what's it been like to work with this project? And you've done other miniatures games. What's it like working on this team? Keep in mind that your future employment depends upon your answer.
I'll be fine. The team is great. You put together a good crew. Everybody's very dedicated. They're like leaning into the work. I think that's awesome. They're always eager to learn and sponge up, everything. When I'm like, hey, you guys could be like doing these 7 things. I'm like, well, let's do this.
How about I do 8? Yeah,
yeah.
We have a great crew.
Yeah, great crew to get to work with. It's been fun. I mean, any excuse to go and watch some anime. I love anime. I'm a giant in most aspects of my life. So that's been really cool. Moving minis around, bossing each other. It's a good time. And for me, I don't know. It's like anytime I get to like kind of like workshop and improve like the base like system of a game, that makes me super happy. Like like at the center of my being, like there's a systems designer that really loves that stuff. So it's hard for me not to do that, even when it's past the point of should be doing that. But then you're like, oh damn, that would make it better, and so you got to do stuff. But,
yeah, our hearts are in the same place there. That process of sort of building the engine and the system and making it all work and having all the components fit nicely within it. It really is it's my favorite part of the design process. The 0 to 1, kind of completion and refinement.
Yeah, and it's been fun to like get back to some of my roots of like just completely breaking things in half in terms of like power level and just be like, yeah, this is not fair. And it's like I felt like I was like playing games and it's like, yep, all right, we played another squad. It's time to like change these minis. It's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, that's pretty fun.
Yeah, well, and this is part of why I brought you into the team, right? It's like I wanted to make sure like Gundam Assemble is designed to not just be like a game that is fun out of the box that people can play and just like giant robots battling and roll dice for combat, but we wanted it to be a very robust, successful, competitive game where you can have squad-based battles and 3v3 battles, and as well as giant epic 5v5s and other cool modes that I'm not allowed to talk about yet. But like and so I needed to pull in the big guns, right? And that's part of why I brought you in here, because I think it's like I want it's not I enjoy this process myself, but it needs we need a strong team and that strong development instincts, and that's I guess part of the thing to talk about. It's like how one of the things I love having you in the room, and I love working with you because like we see eye to eye on a lot of different things, and I can trust that you're going to not just like find the things that are broken because they're broken, but to be able to push the philosophy that allows us to build the games that are fun and make the projects, make the most powerful stuff, the most fun stuff, and make sure that there's enough discovery and counterplay. And so I don't know if there's like specific things that have come to mind in terms of how you've approached this category of game, or things that have come up that have that have worked well in the engine, or anything that comes to mind about this project that we're allowed to talk about without talking about the specifics of the units and stuff that won't be revealed yet.
Yeah, I think I can speak generally to all of this. So I think that the important thing is to get the unfun complexity out of the way. And there are certain abilities you can put in games like this that are interesting and complex, but they don't add fun to the game. They remove fun from the game, and they like make your brain hurt, and like steam coming out of your ears, like just like trying to figure it out. And so getting those things out of the game and putting the more fun kinds of abilities in the game, it doesn't mean that you're losing richness to the game. It's about like selecting the right kinds of complexity. And things that will remove feel bad moments as well. So if your opponent has like some onboard trick that if you were just paying more attention to every single thing that was going on. You're like, oh, I wouldn't have fallen face first into that. That feels really bad because you should have known about that.
Yeah.
But removing those kinds of things from the game really enhance the, it feels more streamlined and smooth and fun, and you're just like having a good time with it. And the game's not asking you to do a lot of kind of unfun thinking. And so I think that's a really important aspect to it. Another thing is the combinatorics of how the the minis work together and the possibilities of the team space. Something that I think that the team really did a great job with on this game in particular, because there's only so many minis in each set. And when you're comparing a minis game to like a trading card game is going to always have like lots more cards, lots more combinations. The deck sizes are bigger, all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to get the same feelings out of a minis game as you would out of a TCG, even though fundamentally they have a lot in common with each other. But I think the team did a really great job of having enough like crossover combinatorics across the set that or the first few sets, like the pool that's there, to it's like wow, there's a lot of possibilities here, and I could build this way, I could build this way, I could build this way. You get a lot of mileage out of it, and I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. We've been able to do a lot with it. The core competitive version of this game is typically going to be like you pick 3 units and you have 9 tactics cards, which are kind of like a little mini TCG deck you get to play with to give you a couple more strategic aspects to it. But it's really a lot about the minis, and then the fact that with a lot of these minis games, when we talk about complexity areas, like you have to building a minis army can be really complex, right? You have a certain point totals and you have to build like how these different things work out, and we wanted to make it way simpler than that. Just, hey, pick any 3 guys and go. All the guys that you buy will come with enough cards, you could just take the cards that come with them and shuffle it and play. But then from there, have enough that we're like, oh, if I combine this and this, it's a totally different experience, and there's synergies here, so that you get to have that fun of discovery. And it's also an interesting problem because we've talked about business models here, right? And unlike a TCG where I buy randomized packs of cards and I'm hunting for the rare or the cool thing I want, there's no randomization in this product. It's totally you buy what you get, which creates a really interesting game design and development challenge too, because you've got to make every product appealing on its own, because otherwise it just doesn't sell and it sits on a shelf. And for game stores, it's like a disaster. And you want to, and we're pacing them out so that there's product every month or two, depending upon the the part of the year we're in. So you've got new stuff that needs to like reinvigorate the community and like change the environment. And so there's all of these really interesting challenges that come with building this kind of product that's been really fun to work through together.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to talk about like the way the business model was working, but I think that's one of the things that's really cool about the game. Um, the people have a little bit of fatigue around like the whole blind box, booster pack kind of model, and
Yeah.
being able to see what you get, and you're only buying it if it's kind of like the free to play model in the mobile game, where
It's
you're like,
very,
well,
very
I'm only
similar.
buying this if it has value to me, so like we better put some value in there for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and you know what you're getting, and you know your spend is capped, right? I mean, Matt, trading card games were the precursor to free to play games, right? Very, very. I mean, it's
yes.
not free, but it was cheap. A booster pack was way cheaper than a full game, but it was also going to cost you way more to get what you actually wanted.
I have a story about that, but so this was like GDC, like I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that, right?
It's the game
Uh,
developers conference for those that not familiar with the acronym. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe it was more like 20 years ago at this point. Anyhow, uh, so everybody's like, oh my gosh, these Korean games are like, they make so many of these Korean games. They're free to play, and they have these like microtransactions. They're making all this money because that's where it started, right? It was like
Right.
in that realm. That's where they kind of it was like the kart racer games and stuff like that. And so we go to GDC, and this is like Wizards going to GDC for the first time. And we roll in, we're like, oh, we're gonna learn all these things from all these game developers, and they're like, oh, this free to play thing is like so crazy. And we all look at each other, we're like, we've been doing this for years, guys. Like, this is how it works. And
Yeah.
so like, then looking at us going like, oh yeah, tell us all the things about how booster packs work, and we're like, okay, we were trying to learn from you guys. This doesn't quite work out how we expected. But like the market just shifted so dramatically at that point. That was it.
Yeah.
But, anyway, so, sorry to interrupt your story, but that took me
No,
off.
yeah, it's. I mean, look, it's one of the nice things about having this conversation with you because we can, kind of intersect all the different areas, like where physical games inform digital design, where digital is informed physical, where the different like modes and how business models and game design intersect. Like, and we love geeking out about this sort of thing, and there's not a lot of people that have been on so many different sides of the industry to be able to kind of have these insights and see the crossovers.
Yeah, it's funny how it's like, well, at the end of the day, this is just entertainment for people, and regardless of how you're playing your games, it's still the same like brain we're appealing to. So
What is it that makes games appealing? Why do we play games? What is it that, the sort of joy of, discovery and connection and, exploration and, competition and aspiration and all these things, that we have, codified in various places, including my book for anybody that hasn't actually read it by now. But the but it's as the frontier develops and like new technology drives our ability to serve those needs, right? That's what leads to these changes, right? So whether it's, a mobile phone allowing you to play games in a different environment, whether it's, a digital printing allowing us to have different types of product that couldn't exist before, or blockchain or VR or AI. We haven't seen a lot of AI incorporated. Forget AI building games, but like, what does it mean to have AI inside of games, right? Is there something that is available there? I'm sure there will be, but I don't, that's coming. Like, I love to live on that edge of like, what does the new frontier of technology allow us to do with the same classic gameplay desires? Like, those don't change, but how they can be expressed does change.
yeah, yeah, we're just thinking like, oh, like you stick AI into like like a Baldur's Gate 3 or something, and it's like, okay, now it's the DM, and it's directing all the because like the games like that are about like all the possibilities and the branching, and it's like, oh, it could maybe do all that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's there's definitely an obvious space there of like, the when I'm in an immersive open world like role playing game, the fact that the characters feel so alive and that there's so many different things that we could do and so many different ways we could interact, that's part of what the appeal is. In
Mhm.
principle, generative AI of some type could allow for that space to open up more, and I'm sure get really crazy and all turn into Nazis or whatever. But still, well,
Yeah,
done well, I think
it
there's
would go
something really
south
fun
very
there.
fast, but yes.
Yeah. But I also just try to think about it in terms of like other lighter touch things, like other ways. Like, we talked about how cool roguelikes are, and that's because there's an algorithm that generates a infinite possibilities within a constrained space that makes it really fun. Again, that's a form of primitive AI that you're trying to like, what is that? How does this how does this generate stuff in a way that's smart and well done? I think there will be fun experiments to run in this space. I think I even imagine a tabletop games with like a dark tower type, centerpiece that has some, uncertain output based on a
Pretty
rudimentary
fun.
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have been chatting for almost an hour and a half here, so I do think we want to wrap it up. I think it is such a pleasure to finally get to work with you on such an awesome project and get to work together on so many things. Like, every time we chat, I love it. Obviously, you're a smart, good human who uh is able to also kind of push the boundaries and thinks about life in much the same ways that I do. So grateful to have you as a friend, grateful to have you now as a coworker, and finally, long overdue guest on the podcast.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. It's grateful. I'm grateful for you as a friend, and showing me the ways of the digital nomad, and all these fun times we've had over the years and things like that. It's and yeah, getting to work together. It does feel overdue, right? Like it's
Yeah,
about
yeah.
time.
It
It's
feels
time.
like we kind of should have already done it by now, but I'm glad some, good things are worth waiting for. And now that you are also a digital nomad, we have to actually plan a time where we meet up in some crazy part of the world together, and do some face to face things, and hang out there, because most of our interactions are still the digital space, and I think that would be a lot of fun too. So maybe we'll do another podcast live from Costa Rica or somewhere, and share more with guests that want to know about how to live as a digital nomad, how to work as a digital nomad. Because I have alluded to that plenty of times on the podcast, but I haven't really talked about it. And after almost 5 years for me now, living this life, I've gotten pretty good at being able to be, productive and and build the habits and routines that make life work no matter where you are in the world. So interesting. So if anybody that's listened this far is interested in a conversation about that, hit me up on your favorite social media platform, and we'll work on that next.
It'll be fun.
All right, man. Great chatting with you. Cheers.
Great chat with you too.
Game design is a craft, and like any craft, it gets better with structure, feedback, and repetition. You're able to learn better when you're surrounded by like-minded people who support each other and lift each other up. The Think Like a Game Designer Design Lab is designed to give you all of that. Over 60 lessons from idea to publishing, a private game design Discord, and exclusive bonuses for those who join now and have been longtime podcast listeners. It's also the lowest price I've ever offered these exclusive lessons. And so you don't need to wait for a new class or wait for another opportunity. This is the opportunity. If you're ready to level up, if you're ready to build a career that you're passionate about, build the game you've been dreaming of, this is your time. Go to justingarydesigns.com to learn more. Thank you so much for supporting us through your pledges, podcast reviews, and enthusiasm on social media. It has been such an honor to be able to do this podcast for so many years and have such incredible guests and insights to present to you. This podcast would not exist without your support and your help. We've recently launched a new portal, justingarydesigns.com, where I've got weekly articles on game design and creativity, along with show notes, lessons from the podcast, and more exclusive insights to help you with your creative projects. We're building an entire community of people who are passionate about self-improvement, about creativity, and about spreading these messages as far and wide as we can. So please, if you're interested, come join us at justingarydesigns.com.